Welcome to
back to
Straight No.
Straight No. Thought I was doing it tonight.
Welcome to Straight No Chaser. It's been a little while since we made an episode, but we took some time to set up a special episode. We're actually doing it in person this time, as you can see. And our guest today, who we're excited to have on, is Alec Maskell. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, happy to have you. So, Alec is a film major at Suffolk. Sometimes we laugh about it, but he's actually pretty good. He recently made his first and latest movie. You want to talk about that a bit, Alec?
Yeah, so my first movie, a documentary I did for one of my classes called Fragmented 2020. And it's actually about these guys and a few of our other friends, some of their roommates from last year. And it's basically about our experiences as a friend group in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah, and like economic effects.
Economic effects, Black Lives Matter, how everyone reacted to that. How relationships basically survived the pandemic and anything that basically affected us during the last 12 months.
Yeah, kind of. It's a good look at how our culture has been affected over the pandemic. Yeah. So how can people see that if they want to?
So go on YouTube. It's on my account on YouTube, Alec Maskell channel. Subscribe if you like the video. And it's up there. We'll put a link in.
Yeah, and here's a quick preview of Alec's video / short movie. I just kept working my job thinking like I heard about COVID.
And I think we kind of realized that was the last time we were going to see each other for a very long time.
The mood was kind of like, I don't even know, like the world's ending or something.
Like I was not in the right mental space this entire time.
It was a really bad state of being, I guess.
I think that the future of the economy is going to be very different.
I think it's time for white people to shut up in the way that they need to let marginalized communities speak for themselves and say what they want.
I think the country reached a boiling point.
Fellow Americans are being shot dead and their murderers get to walk free.
Maybe this wasn't the best time, obviously, for mass protests to happen because of the pandemic, but when is it going to happen ever?
Boston's going to need to focus on its history because it historically has been incredibly racist.
Do you think that our friend group is divided?
I mean, yeah, definitely, we were a little bit more divided.
We all kind of just been trying to do our own thing.
Well, I wouldn't say that it, diminished our friendship in any way.
Fragmented might be more of a way to put it.
So, going off the video, as you guys all just watched, what was a little bit of the inspiration for the scenes you did with each person? Like, were you trying to get specific points of views on certain issues from each one of us?
Yeah, for sure. So, there were certain topics that I tailored more to, people or certain participants. Like you two, you guys are both in relationships as I was as well, so I asked you guys questions about that. Whereas, a B, I centered a little bit more on, economics and the effects of that during the pandemic.
It's awesome. And also with the filming style, if you can explain, what you were trying to capture with the camera and, what the technique was as well.
So, being my first film, I was obviously trying to just kind of get a feel for the camera, learn it out, kind of learn different shots and how they work. This past semester, I really took some inspiration from a lot of different filmmakers who are fictional filmmakers but utilize documentary style. So Steven Soderbergh, the director of the Oceans trilogy, he was a huge inspiration. A lot of zooms, some pans. There's a cool shot at the end of the movie that kind of pans through each apartment, and we kind of see a step into everyone's lives. Just really getting a feel for different lenses and different shots, and learning how to work with a camera.
It's awesome.
So, was that the first time you used video editing software in film, or do you have experience before that?
Yeah. So last year I took production 1 at Suffolk, which we actually did work on a couple of projects. They were much shorter though, just a couple minutes long each. In that class, I worked in Adobe Premiere. Sadly, that class got cut short because of the pandemic. So I didn't really get to work in like Avid, which is the standard for the industry. But for this project, I was also in Adobe.
Oh, okay. So, what are like the main tools you like to use? Like, is it all through Premiere, or are there other softwares and hardware that you use? Like, just take us through the process of what you use.
Yeah. So I currently only really know Adobe. I'm trying to get into Avid, in the future because that is the industry standard.
Okay.
As far as other softwares, moving forward, I'm trying to kind of step away from documentary and go a little bit more into fictional. So I'm going to be working with like Final Draft, which is a screenwriting software. As far as cameras go, I used a Canon DSLR for the documentary, and I just got a Sony A6400, which is a really, really nice mirrorless camera. So Sony is the wave right now for sure for cameras.
They're at the top of the camera game.
Yeah, they've surpassed Canon now. So
yeah,
absolutely.
I was gonna say, so for Avid, like, so do you have a lot of experience using Avid? Because I know as a journalism major, we use Avid also in the newsroom. That's like the standard for there as well. Yeah. So have you gotten a chance to use it yet?
I really didn't get to like work with Avid at all yet because production 2 is actually when you kind of learn the ins and the outs of the software.
Yeah.
And I, because of the pandemic, Suffolk skipped us ahead to production 3 from production 1. So when I take production 2, I'll kind of get more of a feel for it. But yeah, no, I haven't worked with it so far. What are your experiences?
Yeah, we used it in broadcast journalism as like the class I took. So I actually found that like Avid has a lot more features than something like Adobe Premiere, even like iMovie as you would expect. But the thing is, a lot of those features, it's like sort of like digging deeper. Like a lot of the stuff is stuff you wouldn't use as a beginner filmmaker, but then like or as a reporter, and a lot of it's stuff that you kind of like you learn it step by step. Because I found it at first really overwhelming to use, but then like if you compare it kind of with like more simpler softwares, it's like a lot of those have everything you need. So then once you get to that certain level and you keep going deeper and deeper, that's when like with graphic effects and stuff, that's where Avid really opens up. It's sort of like comparing like GarageBand and Logic, like the core, they're like the same thing, but one has so many more fine details in it.
Yeah, I got editing was less of like a learning curve during this process, like during this film, because I was working in a software I was familiar with.
Yeah.
But it was more learning how to work with the camera and learning different apertures, how to make lighting look the way I want it to look, and how to work with different lenses. So,
would you say your biggest challenges were with filming and producing the documentary?
Biggest challenges. I think part of it was getting you guys to sit down to do the interviews.
Scheduling.
Scheduling. Another part was like definitely finding good places to film B-roll to basically back up what I was asking you guys about.
Yeah.
And just generally weaving the whole thing together and starting from scratch basically was the biggest learning curve that I kind of had on this project.
So if someone watching wants to film in a city, I know you had a process you had to go through to be able to do that. So you want to just kind of take us through what you had to do in order to get some of that footage?
I guess that's true. That was actually another hard part of it. If you want to film, most places you're going to have to get permission. So I had to get these guys to sign a lot of different forms. I had to get, our landlords from all the collective apartments to sign off, basically saying you can use this location. So I think one thing I did learn from this project too is that like paperwork and legal paperwork is like very vital to anything you do in film. Because if you don't have it to back it up, like anything else, you're just gonna get sued.
It's actually
fucked over.
It's a law in Mass. Like Mass, I know is particularly strict, where like any individuals you film and you consent at certain locations, like, and it's always like not everyone's always on the same page with it too. Because I remember I did a newscast last year about the MBTA, about the subway, and I asked like an official who worked there for permission, and she's like, "Yeah, let me just contact my supervisor," and she did that. And she's like, "Yeah, you can shoot in here. All we had is a tripod. It was like in the station. It wasn't even behind the gates." And then like the next thing you know, transit police is like, "Hey, like you guys can't set up a camera in here." I was like,
Transit police.
Yeah. And then I was like, "She literally said we could." She's like, "Oh, she can't say that." I was like, "Bro, like this is causing trouble." He's like, "You gotta film outside." He's like, "Outside's okay, not inside." I was like,
Yeah, I actually had the same problem on this one. I had a shot that was on the T coming from Cambridge into Park Street, and that shot couldn't be used in the film for the same
really?
reasons.
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
Who would you get permission from to shoot in like a subway, like the city?
Yeah, I think you'd have to go through the city, and probably something from the MBTA as well.
Yeah.
But
There you have it, folks. Just another way the government makes our lives harder.
yes, for sure.
Absolutely. I was thinking, by the way, Alex, did you have to like fight any hobos when you were like down in the MBTA? They were like, "Stop filming me, bro."
Yeah. See, we tried to not get them in the video. We tried to not talk to them because we didn't want to deal with that. But, I mean, they're there. They're in the background. But yeah, that's the other thing. Getting people like this is for like a doc filming, like documentary or like newscast filming. Getting people to talk to you sometimes can be a pain in the ass as well. Because some people they're just trying to mind their own business. They just want to carry on with their day. And then the next thing is we come up with a mic like, "Hey, say something."
Or someone who starts the interview and they're like, I changed my mind like halfway through.
Oh yeah, there was that we had too. He was just like, "I can't do this," and he laughed. I was like, "All right."
I was just gonna say, I think another. I just wanted to mention this, and I would say this to other future filmmakers as well, with any representation. One thing that I did have a little bit of a struggle with this project was, talking about Black Lives Matter and figuring out a way to pose questions to you guys and get responses that were, going to be representing the movement and representing, obviously as a white filmmaker, I was trying to talk about a subject that, wasn't my subject, I guess, but, I think it's important to like talk about those things, and a huge problem in film is representation of other races and other cultures, so.
I actually thought that, specifically the question when you asked us that, or me specifically, was actually one of the most difficult, but like, most like, almost like powerful questions to be asked, and it was like really interesting answering it in an honest way. For sure.
Yeah, some of those questions were like they were pretty deep too.
Yeah, they were,
They
Some
made
of
you
them were
think.
tough.
Yeah.
That made
But,
you really
Yeah.
think. I like the variety too because you got a total 8 people in total.
There were 7.
Seven,
Seven.
yeah. So you get a big variety of answers, especially because a lot of us come from different backgrounds, so
Yeah.
culturally and everything. So it's interesting to kind of get that sample size.
Yeah, and you get more than one perspective, which is what I like about the group. Like, we don't all necessarily have the same views that we agree on.
Yeah, there was stuff where you guys totally diversity obviously of answers. There was some that were, the pandemic didn't make me sad or depressed, and others really struggled with that. So it was interesting.
And so to conclude the interview, I want to ask, which director and which movies inspired you to become a filmmaker?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's a lot, for American directors. I think Scorsese's a go-to. I loved Goodfellas and just everything he did. Honestly, Spike Lee has become a huge inspiration for me recently.
Yeah.
And I would also mention Steven Soderbergh, like I said earlier, and those guys are starting to really inspire me now at this stage because they're independent filmmakers, and they really, especially Spike Lee, started from scratch and just built his empire. And
Yeah.
you can learn a lot from those guys. So Do the Right Thing, that was a huge inspo for me. I know Jake and I both loved The Five Bloods this year.
That's one of my
Yeah, I still have to
favorite
watch
movies this year.
it. I haven't seen it yet.
Actually, if I could put in one more question. So you were talking about just getting a new camera, the new Sony. So what comes next? What are your next ambitions and endeavors moving forward from this? What's next on your plate?
So this coming semester, I'm really going to be focusing on screenwriting, trying to get more of a feel for starting my movies from the very beginning and seeing them through the whole process.
Yeah.
So this semester, the goal is I have one more documentary I kind of want to touch on and start filming, and then a couple of fictional projects I want to do. We have one that's coming up that is going to be slightly inspired from Pulp Fiction, the old diner movie.
Oh, yeah. You told me about that. That actually sounds pretty interesting. I want to see how that comes out.
Yeah, now we'll have to be back on once more projects are under the belt. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
All right, thanks for telling us a little bit about your career and ambitions. So, so I like that you mentioned in your documentary, you mentioned the pandemic because that, of course, has been like a big topic in news and just overall throughout the whole year and starting now. But what I'd like to bring up in my topic is the fact that there's more Americans now who are vaccinated than who have COVID still. So I think that is like a big milestone for something that hopefully this year will come to an end. So I think that's something important. And I don't know. A lot of people will say that it's like the new administration. I don't think so. I don't think it's specifically because of the new administration. I think it's the work with the healthcare industry in this country and how areas like Boston, New York, and Philly and Cali, they like lead in the world with healthcare.
Vaccination.
And yeah, 2 of the vaccines were made, like the Moderna and Pfizer. Like a lot of scientists, of course, were from all over the world who were involved, but they're both U.S. companies.
Yeah.
And those pharmaceutical companies, along with our healthcare system, is really what I think drove it, because they keep doing it out day by day.
Yeah. Honestly, I think even with the Trump administration, they didn't necessarily fail with getting vaccines out. I think maybe they made mistakes. And like they could have done more for the setting up an actual infrastructure to deliver them. But like it wasn't a complete failure. Like the vaccines were getting out.
Yeah. So I'm saying, I think regardless of who was president, I think just where they screwed up was obviously like preparing, like getting rid of that whole pandemic council.
Yeah.
I think the thing that like I took from it was how productive private and public partnership, like with development of a vaccine. It took less than a year to develop the coronavirus
Yeah,
vaccine.
which is insane.
It's absolutely absurd when you think about it. And I feel like states funded programs would take a lot longer, whereas like with private businesses, there's incentive to get efficiencies high or effectiveness ratios high for the vaccines before we deploy, and on a much faster basis too. And I thought like the collaboration was good for the federal government because it saved it money and it made it so that it would be able to be deployed quicker as well.
Yeah.
And what was Biden's promise again, though? He said like 100 million people vaccinated.
Yeah,
in the
he
first
wants
100
to
days.
do 100 million vaccines within the first 100 days, and then he actually increased the target. He wants to do 150 million.
Yeah. They actually said that the 100 million target was pretty conservative because they think that they can deploy much more than 100 million.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, funny enough, my mom actually is so she's a pharmacist at CVS or Stop and Shop. I'm sorry, and about a month ago, I think it was like right before the kind of like, I think it was back in like maybe like December. She was telling me they were bumping it up. She had to administer the vaccine, and she was telling me they were bumping it up that she had to now administer 9 shots an hour.
Wow.
And she's like the head of like her pharmacy, so like and take phone calls, talk to doctors, and like it's a whole process. Like they have to fill out information, get everything sanitized, and
that's awesome.
Bro, they're getting vaccines in faster than they can do tests.
Think about it though. Like the priority of the government right now is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. So what you do is you try and prioritize it inside the industry. So like you said, your mom's regulated to administer at least 9 shots an hour. I don't know if that's company-based or government-based, but it just shows you where the priority is. Because the faster, the more people that they have administering that many shots an hour just gets you to your target goal quicker, essentially.
Yeah, and I think So they're creating more contact tracing jobs as well as like vaccine administering jobs.
I saw that.
The thing is, those are pretty temporary.
Yeah.
Like, those aren't going to last.
That's not gonna last. Although we could say, like, going into the future, you could probably get flu levels down if you had contact tracing too. Because I think masks will become a lot more commonplace. Like, even if you have common cold or flu, because like the transmissibility goes way down in percentile when you're taking a few steps to prevent other people from getting sick.
Yeah.
So I think if there's one thing to actually take from the pandemic, it's that public health in the long term will actually improve a lot. That's what I would take from it.
Yeah, for sure. Like contact tracing, and plus, like, people are going to remember this. So I feel like a good thing to do even after is when you're sick, wear a mask.
Yeah.
Like, if someone is sick, they should wear a mask.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope we do that.
It could be something good that comes out.
I think that might be something I do. Like, if I'm ever sick, just wear a
Yeah,
mask.
it's respectful to the community.
Yeah.
And like the other thing I noticed is like people take much more great care and like don't go around
Hand
elders
washing.
too, like
Oh,
avoiding when you're sick to go around the elderly too. It's a great like community habit to have to just stay away from people who have compromised immune systems when you're sick.
Speaking of old people, have any of your grandparents gotten vaccinated yet?
My grandma's supposed
really?
to soon.
Yeah, my
It's
grandma's this month.
Did you know actually they where you can get it online? Apparently they're complaining that it's too complicated. Like,
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Bro, my grandpa is like,
I mean, I know it's old people, but still, apparently it's like super, like, everyone.
I mean, my grandpa is like technologically illiterate, and he's already gotten both shots.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends where you get it, but I just heard some people were saying that the website was like
I
super
love-
incompetent.
It's really not though.
Bro,
Because,
my
like, anyone our age
grandpa
can figure it
barely
out,
speaks
probably.
English. Like, he was able to set it up.
Has he a lot of art though, or?
Yeah, he's like 78, I think.
Well, I mean, my family, my grandma in Europe supposed to be getting it soon, but apparently there also they weren't like rolling it out.
It's
as
such a
quick.
meme though, showing your grandparents how to like use technology. You'll be like, all right, so like you go on, let's just say you're going on a government like service from like Massachusetts. You go, Grandma, you click like the link that says vaccination schedules and appointments. Click on that, and then it'll give you like a bunch of options with days that are available, and like ask her what time she can make it, book the appointment, and then you just have to put in your information what group you fall into. It's
I
so
had to help
easy.
my other grandpa like make bookmarks for all his baking logins. He was like, I need easy access to these. I'm like, bro, you're like on like super advanced baking websites. You can't make a bookmark. Like,
I remember texting actually the link for my doc to my grandparents and them being like, "Oh, how do we watch? Like, we just click it and watch it." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's it right there."
Like a mouse button that hovers over it and it goes to like a hand click and it opens up instantly. You're like, oh fuck! You're like, oh my god.
watch when we're old, there's gonna be some like holographic tech that we're like, I don't understand,
Dude, we're gonna be like wearing those like VR.
Oh, the
like,
Microsoft
and you're gonna have
glasses,
to, like,
the Windows.
yeah, like touch screen.
Yeah,
Wow,
like touch the screen.
I think
It's like the touch isn't working.
the other thing that's been tough too is like our professors watching them like learn how to deal with Zoom.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's so
Blackboard
funny.
and shit.
It's actually so
I
funny.
mean,
Yeah.
as a data major, my professors are like, I'm in the science and tech department.
Except for Cleary though. Cleary like
Yeah, Cleary. Oh
they'll
my.
hold up. There's one ISOM professor that will hold up like a sheet of paper to the camera and
Yeah.
it's backwards because of like the screen.
What's crazy is he's worked on like insane projects.
Uh,
Like he's worked on like city infrastructure and he's worked on like a NASA satellite. But he can't share a PowerPoint on Zoom. You can't do like a screen share.
He doesn't even know how to turn his video on.
That's pretty funny, actually. That's crazy.
He's a good teacher though.
He is. He's a really.
He's great in person.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
It's always funny to see what teachers are great in person and great online.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
some will be like way better in person, but won't know what they're doing at all.
Yeah.
Online. That's like how some of mine are.
The thing that actually sucks about like online classes is when you connect with the professor, it doesn't feel like when you were in person, you could go to their after hours and ask questions, and then like they might give you internship opportunities and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But like online, it's
It's
like
much harder.
even if you connect with them like online, it's like let me shoot them an email.
It's actually how I got my first internship
Yeah,
this
it was
past
in person.
summer through my professor. I like hit him up before like in the first week.
That's smart. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I feel like there's like a little bit of human connection lost in the Zoom era.
Yeah.
One more thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is just anything else, regardless of the pandemic. What are your guys' opinions on the other things Biden has done so far? So far, he's lifted the travel ban Trump put in place. He has stopped the Dakota Access Pipeline, and he's trying to bring families together at the border, and he's rejoined the Paris Climate Accord.
I love that he did that.
Yeah.
That needed to happen.
Yeah.
I actually agree with all of them except for the Dakota Access Pipeline. I know a lot of people won't like that I did that. I like the Paris Accords. I think it was a good idea. I also think that returning parents and children at the border was also a really good idea. And the travel ban was also a good executive order for the fact that we shouldn't be banning blanket countries from entering the country just on. It was basically a religious ban. It was mostly on predominantly Muslim countries. Yeah, countries.
The ridiculous
before the one problem I have with that is there's many problems with it, but the biggest problem is the only countries we should ever ban from entering the U.S. are ones where they're threatening us with nuclear war or we're in active warfare with them. I think those are the only two you could ever really argue.
He also lifted the LGBT plus the ban on the military. Trump had put into place.
Yeah, I think.
Wait, what is your thing with Dakota? I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say we need domestic oil, which I agree with, but not through native lands. You can get it from so many other places.
Well, there's already so much the pipeline built at this point. I actually think you should set up the infrastructure now. What I agree with Biden on.
Getting poisoned.
What I agree with Biden on, here's what I will say, is that I think the transition to green energy needs to be subsidized on the federal level, and you need to promote green energies being created. However, the main point I have is that you're going to drive oil prices up because once we stop using domestic suppliers for oil, we're just going to, the demand for U.S. oil doesn't go away. Yeah. So essentially all we do is we buy more expensive oils from overseas, like Saudi Arabia, instead of producing them here and keeping prices of gas and oil for your house.
No, I agree with that, but I don't think it necessarily has to rely on that specific pipeline though, because we get offshore oil.
But it's a major pipeline.
I think they just redirect where it goes though.
I support the pipeline as well, because if you think about it, we're funding all this green energy, and right now we're transitioning. But if you still look at freight shipping, trucks, planes, they're all still run on fossil fuel. On top of that, all the clothes we wear, all the stuff around us, it's here because of oil. It's used in making plastic.
I just think it's naive to think that you can stop domestic production and cut your demand for it.
No, that's it.
You can promote.
There's still a reliance that the world needs for oil.
Yeah, I think they should have taken more in consideration who was living there, because it's not just the natives that have gotten the side effects from it. It's also local farmers have gotten poisoned from it, and also those people, if they're the ones living there and say they are for it and they're willing to give up some of the land to build a pipeline, then they should get some of the profit.
The big point on that, I think, is that the U.S. government shouldn't be allowed to, because they're not U.S. lands. Native reservations are not U.S. lands, so they shouldn't be able to put a pipeline through it. However, they can use eminent domain on U.S. farmers.
That's probably what.
Well, not. I don't think they can use it on. I don't think it should be allowed to be used on native lands, but they should be allowed to use it. They should be allowed to use it on U.S. farmlands, though. I disagree with you guys on that. But native lands, I think they should be allowed to use.
I talked with you about this earlier. I agree with you that we should do more, drilling. We should be doing more things here.
Yeah.
We rely on these other countries for.
That's why it makes no sense.
Even.
There's economic. It's all economic. It's all
since
Bush
I'm
like Nick Cheney want to start another war for oil.
Since Bush Jr., we've actually developed an oil infrastructure, and we did it quickly through fracking. So I think Biden's gonna crack down on fracking, but he's not gonna stop drilling and looking for offshore drilling.
If he doesn't take a pro domestic oil standpoint, I'm telling you right now, prices are going to rise, because what are the Saudis going to do? They're going to say, "Oh, look, U.S. oil production is down. What can we do? We can raise the price per barrel, and then we're going to see gas prices go up."
The only thing I do agree with Sven on with this is that I just think with this topic, part of the problematic element of it is just the continuing displacement of Native Americans It's just a tough,
Yeah.
The U.S. government is actually filled with scumbags for putting a pipeline through reservation
Bro,
land.
any government is filled with scumbags. It's the government.
A lot of those.
I just think that's honestly unforgivable. I think you should definitely be able to use eminent domain on U.S. farmlands, but reservations aren't U.S. soil. I hate to break it to the government.
Yeah, plus they already kind of pushed them out of land already. It's just a continuation of that. What I was gonna say with the travel ban is I didn't support the travel ban. It is kind of based on like there are countries that are Muslim majority, and what I think is ironic too is a lot of those people who they're preventing coming in are refugees, many who are actually Christian too, like from the Christian communities in those countries who had to flee war. And it just seems like funny for a president who holds up the Bible.
Yeah, the biggest thing
shit.
is that we should be taking refugees that are fleeing places of violence, and we should also be taking it based simply on the fact that I know we've mentioned this, but native-born U.S. citizens actually create businesses at twice the rate of natural-born citizens.
Yeah.
So if you think about that just from an economic, stimulating side of things, then it's actually less advantageous to cut off importation.
But what I think is silly too is I don't think anywhere should have to take in migrants, but at the same time we have the resources and to take in refugees, and that's who's mostly coming.
Yeah,
it's not terrorists.
We also have the
one
land.
terrorist,
We have
it's
so much
hundreds
land.
of refugees.
It was honestly the most
and we
pathetic
need more
display
people to work.
was I think it was in 2015 when we only accepted 10,000 Syrian refugees. We could have accepted hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And we didn't step up.
Instead, Germany had to absorb a lot.
It's the typical American,
Yeah,
it's
like, hey, fuck off.
Yeah.
Before World War II, we sent Jewish people back to Europe, that were
they were coming here from Cuba.
And they turned a few.
They sailed from Morocco.
Think about it.
They sailed from Africa to Cuba, and the U.S.
Think
was
about how many
like,
countless people ended up in death camps because the U.S. government turned away asylum.
Well, you look too at you look at Mexico and all the problems in Trump's shitty comments about Mexicans, and it's I think people fail to realize a lot of Mexicans are coming here because they're in the middle of a fucking war down there too with the cartels and everything else that's going on.
Yeah, that place is brutal.
Yeah, there are people who are in need too.
Yeah.
And it's just
absolutely.
But on well, I guess this is a little off topic, but another thing I really like that Biden's doing is he's going to increase preserved federal land.
Yeah.
So he's going to protect more lands. Trump was the first president to actually decrease protected federal land.
That sounds
national parks and shit.
Yeah.
He
allowed drilling and stuff. Yeah.
I still think that's bad as well.
There are other places.
You can literally use eminent domain to kick farmers off their land and pay them
eminent
out.
domain is so fucked.
It's fucked, but it's actually necessary in a lot of cases, I think.
Yeah.
If you're not trying, the thing is,
Highways.
you still need the lands. So at the end of the day, you're gonna take them from national forests, or you're gonna kick someone out of their land, pay them off, and allow them to relocate.
Go somewhere.
I think that's a better strategy.
I think the issue with eminent domain is they rarely get a good price for their houses and their land.
That is a fair point.
Yeah.
But I think, what was the last point? Oh, alright, so here's what I was also thinking is I know, strategically we have a lot of alliances in the Eastern Hemisphere, but, and you mentioned this, trying to take in more refugees from fleeing, Mexico and Latin America. I actually think it's a good point, if you think about it, the U.S.'s main responsibility is in the Western Hemisphere. We are the superpower in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
I think we should have a lot more of a responsibility to protect countries that are
near to us.
Near our.
Now that I agree with actually, because it does make sense that most of the refugees fleeing Syria and Iraq would go to Greece and Italy because it's nearby. So we should be if we're gonna take in refugees,
it should be
Mexican.
To me, that's what I'm trying to say. Is our
our
percentages of immigration should be higher from Latin America and Canada, if you think about it, because they're the nations that are closest in proximity. We should be trying to help countries that we can in proximity to us.
We're
we
doing
could build relationships with neighbors.
We could do a whole episode on we've talked about this a lot. The drug war and everything.
Yeah.
There's also just a lot of people from Mexico though who just it's like anybody else. They want to come here and they want to follow and chase the American
They just
dream.
want to work.
I actually
they work
think
their
it's
asses
more,
off.
it's more
Yeah.
than that too. It's actually building a reputation with the other countries.
They actually
Yeah.
make more
It's like-
businesses for people to
When
work.
you build an allyship in the Western Hemisphere, it just honestly increases the U.S.'s sphere of influence over in the West. So
Yeah.
like you can actually help build nations. Like Brazil's a great example of it right now. It's the Brazilian economy is growing the fastest in the West right now. So I think like that's just a good point.
Yeah. Speaking of a growing economy, Avi, what do you think about Biden's economic cabinet?
So I was on BBC, the website, I think on Monday, and I saw who he's appointing for the heads of all his economic councils and organizations. So I'm going to go through a rundown of who he's appointing. These are the people in the real power here. Alright, so first we have Janet Yellen. She's going to be the Treasury Secretary. So she's the first woman to be the head of the Treasury Department, and she's been supported by the past 14 heads of Treasury. She actually did a lot of work with the 2008 recession. She was previously the head of the Council of Economic Advisors under Obama.
I did know that.
Yeah.
She worked with the Obama administration.
Yeah, she was
Was
also...
she Treasury Secretary when Obama was?
No, she wasn't
She
Treasury
I thought she
Secretary.
was now.
No.
Okay.
She was head of the Council of Economic Advisors
Okay.
under Obama. And then Trump decided not to move forward with her. And then now that Biden's in, he brought her back. And then, so the new head of the National Economic Council is the youngest guy or youngest person to ever be the head. His name is Brian Deese. So basically what the National Economic Council does is they're in charge of like economic policy. So a lot of like business interaction.
Or stimulus.
Yeah, stimulus, stuff like that. And then it's all intertwined though.
Yeah.
Like Treasury Department, Federal Reserve, they all like work together for this stuff. But so he worked on the automobile industry collapse in 2008 on the council, same council that he's heading now. And then he actually left the government to direct the sustainable investing post at BlackRock. Like he was the head of sustainable investments at BlackRock. So I think that's a pretty sick, that guy's pretty smart.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then so with the Office of Management and Budget, her name is Nita Tanden. I don't actually know much about her, but I know she trained at Yale, and she was previously the head of a think tank called Center for American Progress. And she was actually raised in a family, or not a full family actually, so she had a single mother who actually relied on welfare a lot. And if you actually look at the statistics of who uses welfare the most, it tends to be single mothers, like of all races. Like it's really not what we think the stereotypes are.
The single mother race.
It's pretty much single mothers that use welfare the most.
Anytime you see
Yeah, but
someone
like
in a
white,
minivan,
like that's not a race.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It goes against the stereotype. Like,
now we're talking about soccer moms, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
alright, so now the Council of Economic Advisors is going to be headed by Cecilia Rouse. So she's actually the first African American to be the head of this department.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so she used to be the Dean of Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. And she was an economic advisor for both Clinton and Obama.
Wait, what's the position that she has?
So she's the head of Council of Economic Advisors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so basically like all the people in the
That
cabinet
around
when the
that.
economic team meets. Well, these are the heads, and then the people under them
Yeah.
like, work on specific
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
targets and goals. Yeah. So then the trade representative that he's appointed, I think, is an interesting pick. Her name is Catherine Tai. She's actually half Chinese, and she actually helped work on Trump's Mexican trade deal, and like she mainly focused on labor rights. I don't actually know the specifics, but basically her view is that she wants to make the workers and industries in America more nimble. Like she wants them to perform faster, so that we can actually produce stuff that competes with people that are now outpacing us.
Yeah.
So I really like that perspective. Pretty
Same,
smart.
actually.
Yeah.
That's probably the best piece of information out of any of it is like I think the biggest problem with like especially economics in America is like we've been being out competed by cheaper labor for a long period
all
of
the
time
time.
now. And
We lose jobs because of corporations, not because of immigrants. Biggest lie.
Janet Yellen is also like a really good Treasury Secretary pick. I honestly think her work's been good. I have not much to say, but I just feel like Biden picked like a very helpful group of advisors that are going to be able to help him.
I think what's exciting is they're diverse, so that offers a lot of perspective, and it's a lot of young people actually. So it's a lot of people in their like 50s and 40s. Besides Jeanette Yellen, who's like getting up there in age, but she's smart. She has a ton of experience. I'd say the only issue this administration will probably leave economically is they're definitely going to grow the deficit.
Yeah, but
they're going to spend a lot of money.
It's not fair though because like
they have to.
Like Trump like tried to toe this line that he was going to be great for the deficit, but actually in reality he outspent Obama in 4 years. Well, he didn't outspend him like in totality of the presidency, but he was on pace to outspend him if he had stayed 8 years.
Yeah.
So like this idea that the deficit is something that can be easily fixed, like Biden administration just being fiscally responsible, is no longer true because I just think that
on top of the pandemic, nearly impossible.
It's impossible right now, and I don't think that unless an administration gets really aggressive, I don't think that we're going to see it. And you can't do it right now; it's impossible with the.
I mean, speaking more to the pandemic plan, I think what's really smart is how much was the latest plan that they just approved?
Oh, the one with the Republicans?
Yeah.
That passed it? It was,
I forget how much.
1.8 trillion.
Yeah, 1.8 trillion. So what I like about that is a lot of it is actually dedicated to to broadband in America, like building networking speeds and building infrastructure for internet. So I think that's one smart thing they decided to run with.
I think the best part of the stimulus plan was actually giving checks to Americans because of the fact that if you think about it, when you're cutting checks to Americans at, I think our spending right now, we lowered interest rates. So when you're giving out interest rates at such a low percentage, like to businesses and to individuals, what you're going to see is a much higher return on investment because if an individual then goes to grow their business like 100% or even like 10 to 15%, and pay back the loan, you're going to see like the economy actually grows from that over time. Even people having more money in their pockets is a good thing broadly. And I think that's like it's necessary right now, but you're actually going to. I think what you're going to see afterwards is that stimuluses should be focused more around putting money in people's hands because with like jobs changing so drastically, it's actually going to be like a very important part to keep in future stimuluses of the economy.
Wait, are you saying trickle down economics doesn't work?
No, never.
Wait, Alec, did you have? Yeah.
I wanted to just touch on. I mean, it's kind of backtracking a little bit, but I think another point you brought up that I think is just like in American politics that I think is like something we really should move forward. Obviously, diversity is important. Bringing in people of different backgrounds so that we can have a accurate representation of all the citizens in our country. Yeah. But I think something in that you mentioned earlier, age diversity, I really think is like like bringing in just like people of like all kinds of
use technology.
Well, I think why our government should have younger people is because our government needs to understand how to move fast. Yeah. That saves taxpayer dollars.
It also allows you to look forward. You have people who
have been change with the time.
Yeah, people who've been in the position. They know how politics work. It's like that's great, but get them in the same room with people who know where the country's headed.
They knew how politics worked back when we were
exactly.
fucking young.
Exactly. No, we also need members of our government.
My mailman came by horse.
I saw Lincoln get assassinated.
There's people who still don't milk, man. You already know there's people who milk delivered to them or our government. But no, that's the thing. We also need people who have like high rates of media literacy and technology, like, high knowledge, and because that kind of stuff, like the government, it's just like it lags behind private corporations and business in technology, in communication, in pretty much any type of modernization.
If you look at if you look at how Virginia turned around under Obama's administration, it was actually the state government of Virginia. They digitized all of their like physical files. Like they just made everything faster. They were able to get permits out faster. Like they were just able to do things by spending less money. It plays a huge role in like taking government spending down when the people working understand technology and have updated technology.
Yeah, well, someone who's worked in the Massachusetts state government, like, I could tell you, like, yeah, I know it's a historic thing, but some things gotta change at the time.
Yeah.
Like, the phones are all old, all of our documents are printed, so we have, like, massive file cabinets with shit from the last 30 years.
Didn't you just have to fight for, like, a new computer?
For a new computer, and for, like, our phone's so old. We have this, like, flat screen TV, like, we haven't used yet.
Wait, how large is your department?
There's 10 different branches within, like, I'm part of the Secretary of State, so there's 10 different branches in that.
Okay.
And then my department specifically has maybe only like 12 members.
So 12 members and one computer.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we just bring our
Oh my god,
we
dude.
bring our own computers. To be fair, right now,
Okay.
to get them some slack, there's only like 4 people there right now because it's pandemic.
Oh yeah.
Still, like
Wi-Fi won't reach to everyone.
Wi-Fi is also shit. No, that's true. That's actually
$26 trillion in debt, but state government employees can't have computers.
Yeah.
Also true, and the Wi-Fi doesn't even fucking work in every room.
So
that's what the craziest thing
the
is.
thing is, right now it's expensive to invest in, but long term, like if you look at the state of Virginia, especially Northern Virginia, which boomed in the last 10 years, like it pays off. It would positively affect the deficit.
I actually think
in
a
long
good
run,
point too is the proximity of Northern Virginia to DC. Like you'll see large federal investments in all.
Actually, yeah. So a big reason. So like Deloitte's there, Raytheon's there, Boeing's there, Airbus. Like there are countless businesses there.
You already know that the NSA's headquarters is in like Maryland.
Yeah.
The CIA probably has.
Well, I mean,
like it's all the federal agencies.
Yeah.
Like that are stacked.
It's all in that
different
area.
States in that area. So
So
federal funding tends to go into those areas.
Yeah, and the reason why there are so many private businesses there is government contracts.
Yeah.
They get big bucks with government contracts in Northern Virginia.
Maryland and Delaware, actually, because we've contacted other state houses, they actually run theirs pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, Jersey's actually, you wouldn't think that, because it's like but, I mean, they have the highest tax rates in the country, so at least
I can't even imagine Pennsylvania's government.
No, honestly, so Jersey,
or New York State.
you know, Johnson & Johnson's headquarters is in Jersey. Like, Jersey actually has, like, super nice places and, like, massive corporations, but at the same time, they have places like New York.
I'm pretty sure, aren't they with the highest taxes in the country, though? I thought it was Jersey, New York, Mass was top 3.
Is it not Cali?
Cali might be up there. I thought it was Jersey and New York who were the only ones higher than Mass.
I believe it.
I don't remember.
I think the big takeaway from this is East Coast, East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast.
Yeah. What does the West really have? They have California, so
they have land.
They have San Francisco. I guess they have
Seattle.
They have San Francisco.
They have Vegas. That brings in a lot of money.
Yeah, but that's like
that's more like that's a little inland.
Yeah, maybe it's on West Coast.
Yeah.
It's not just the West.
I think.
I just feel like the East Coast has like so many more productive.
It's more developed.
Yeah. It's a lot more developed.
There's more old money in the East.
Yeah, that too. I think Seattle and San Fran are probably like the 2 closest cities in America right now to Boston. In terms of like, they're kind of cramped, but they're huge tech capitals.
Yeah, exactly.
And now Austin is becoming one.
The other point too is like
Texas.
It's not all, but
I think a lot.
I think a lot of manufacturing and robotics and tech is going to move to Texas from California. I don't think Seattle's going anywhere.
Yeah, I would agree.
The other point is like the actual public infrastructure and institutions are all set up along the East Coast. So if you look at it,
exactly.
Like it makes a lot of sense why there's so many hubs.
Bro, like 95 goes all the way down to Florida.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at like LA and they can't even get that one city.
They couldn't even build a train.
They couldn't even get a football team for now.
Bro, now they got two in
Yeah,
like
they got
2 years.
two. Like,
That's such
not
BS.
fair.
That's so not
Also,
fair.
another thing is the Northeast is the only high-speed rail in the country too.
Yeah.
Which is an embarrassment for the U.S.
Not for a long time though. Remember the first actual bullet rail was going to be built from like, was it Vegas to Florida?
Maybe.
You covered that.
Oh, it's from Vegas, or no, it was from San Francisco, San Jose area down to L.A.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
But
I like the idea of Vegas to Florida. It just sounds like shitty people to other shitty people. Feed them to the Gators, you know?
I don't know, like the biggest problem with U.S. infrastructure is the fact that we can find ourselves in a 26 or what is that? It's gonna be at 30 soon. We'll just call it a $30 trillion deficit, and we don't have high-speed rails. We don't have subsidies in green energy and AI.
Highways without holes in them.
Yeah, that's pathetic.
No, it makes you wonder where that money's going to, and we're so in debt too.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, the problem is I think we bail out too many public or private institutions a lot of the time. You see money misallocated where I don't really think the main priorities are to make sure you have a functional infrastructure and you have protected citizens. Like private companies are supposed to be set up to where you meet your bottom line or you fail. It's not supposed to be that the U.S. government bails you out if you're too big and you're going to have massive implications on the economy.
GM.
GM. That's actually a great point. GM shouldn't even exist.
I think a big reason why they don't is they actually have built a lot of infrastructure around the country.
Yeah.
I honestly argue that there's so many private companies that shouldn't be in existence anymore because they're not productive. How can you keep saving something that just continues to have to be bailed out?
But you look at, in the stimulus, like the past year, like a lot of those companies are the ones that got the money.
Yeah,
you know, they're the ones who got the big bucks. And
well, they have a lot of friends in Washington too. That's the other thing.
It's all very intertwined.
It's all.
They like to keep it in the family.
Which is probably why there's so many old people in Washington. Can you get me my orange juice? Shit like that.
Together.
So
they can't even dress themselves.
Speaking of too big to fail, the industry of finance, Jake, I think you had some stuff to add on.
Alright, so over the last 2 weeks, there's been some very interesting moves in the stock market. So there is a Reddit page called Wall Street Bets. And there's just a group of individuals that started this page up. It's very old. I think it's back 2013 or 2012 the page was created. Anyway, they have this like chat link inside the forum to where you can like have live discussions, and these discussions involve thousands and thousands of people. So a few weeks back, it was in mid-January, the actual members of this group chat were thinking, how can we screw over hedge funds on Wall Street? And how they did that is they found a publicly traded company, Melvin Capital, which is a hedge fund, and they saw inside their public documents that they had bought more shorts on GameStop. So what a short is you borrow a stock from a broker, and then you sell it back to the broker and buy it back at a lower price. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the profit from what the stock drops on, and like say the difference. Say I buy a stock from my broker at $10 a share, or I borrow it from him, and then I buy it back at $7 and trade the $10 share to someone else. I'm shorting the stock, and the $3 that I made is my profit, essentially. So what they found out was that Melvin Capital had shorted 140% of GameStop shares, which means that they bought more shorts than shares that were in existence. And the forum had the idea that, what can we do?
Let's bankrupt them.
Let's bankrupt them, essentially. So they created such a buying demand where you would buy the stock and you would set the sell limit so high that the hedge funds have to buy back at a higher price or hold their position and continue to hemorrhage money over time. They did this with multiple stocks, actually. So Dogecoin was trading at 0.002 cents a share, and they pumped it up to 8.5 cents a share in the course of like 2 days. So you saw it like throughout. There were like terrible. I would honestly argue that these companies weren't even undervalued because, like, if you look at them, they're all dying businesses. GameStop right now has a bunch of retail locations, but as we know, retail is slowly dying by the hands of like Amazon and Walmart, large online retailers that have way more buying power and can sell products at a discounted rate from numerous companies that want to sell their products on Amazon or Walmart. So what you saw was the companies that are dying bought up just to make money for people on this forum page, and then to screw hedge funds on Wall Street. And you also saw afterwards Robinhood, which is it's an app that you can get on your phone. It's for independent traders, retail investors, and the idea is that you can buy stocks and try and play the market. But Robinhood's goal isn't actually to make you money. It's to sell your data and what stocks you buy to larger whales, essentially, to hedge funds and big firms, investment firms on Wall Street, to see what your buying patterns are, to see what stocks are going to go up and down over time. So you're basically the product. The product isn't Robinhood and allowing you to make money. The product is your data and selling it to firms that are going to use it to their advantage.
Yeah.
So Robinhood, after GameStop took off and Melvin Capital was hemorrhaging funds, actually shut down trading on those stocks. Like, they took GameStop trading, you couldn't buy it. I think the same thing happened to AMC. It was just a few days ago, maybe a week now, that this happened. And many people are mad at Robinhood for it. Robinhood also...
I actually have a story on this. So I bought AMC at like $3 a share. And then I was thinking, like, once the pandemic's over, they might go up to like 7 or 8. I'll make a profit maybe in like 2 years. And then this happened, and I went on Robinhood, and AMC was trading at 20. So I tried to sell, and Robinhood kept canceling my order.
Wow.
So I kept trying to sell, like literally for 20 minutes. I just kept hitting the sell button. It went down to fucking $18 a share.
Yeah.
I lost $2 a share because of Robinhood. So
yeah.
I'm done with Robinhood. I'm going to try and switch my brokerage account over to Fidelity.
That's a smart idea. The other thing, this is a good point, is people speculate why Robinhood did it if they were in cahoots with the big Wall Street firms. I actually think the biggest problem is Robinhood had a liquidity problem, which means that when you buy stocks on Robinhood, Robinhood's technically an investment bank where your capital then gets allocated to Robinhood's funds. So if Robinhood can't cover the positions you take, then it has to stop trading the position because they don't have the means to cover those positions long term. So if they shut it down, it's much safer for Robinhood in the long term. But you could also argue that it's free market, so you should be allowed to take positions if you're using the apps and you're funding yourself. So a lot of people are doing what you just mentioned and switching their brokerage accounts to firms that have more capital. Fidelity is a great example, or TD Ameritrade, or any of those types of firms that actually have the funds or liquidity that are in the tens of billions to hundreds of billions of dollars that can cover any position you want to take.
Fidelity has, trillions. They manage $8 trillion a day.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like the firms that can actually handle your liquidity, which is a good point because Robinhood couldn't. So like for independent investors, Mark Cuban actually gave this advice in an AMA, and he said, go away from Robinhood. You have to go to a bigger site that can actually cover your positions and won't have liquidity issues.
I love Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
There's a podcast on YouTube called Earn Your Leisure. They have a great interview with Mark Cuban.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I took from it. Also, I should mention Janet Yellen, Secretary of Treasury, also supports regulation on apps like Robinhood, which I totally disagree with. I actually think this is one of the things I don't like about her appointment, is that I think she's a bit in cahoots with the brokerage firms on Wall Street.
Yeah, she has to be.
Yeah, but I think that's a critique I've had on the Federal Reserve and the federal government for a long time. I think that they only care about the system when it affects the super wealthy, and they don't really care. They only care about the system when it's screwing over wealthy people and helping average day Americans, which is like part of the corruption inside.
Do you think the average Robinhood user user is going to turn away from it? Like, do you
For-
think this
for
is gonna,
Robinhood?
like, you think this will damage their brand?
Yeah, I actually do think it will, because I think it's not even to do with the fact that they shut off trading. I think it's the liquidity issue.
Yeah.
There's too many retail investors and not enough whales on the application,
Yeah.
which means that they don't have the funds to cover your position. Say like there's 7 billion shares of AMC being traded at $10 a share. That equates to like what, $70 billion. Robinhood doesn't have $70 billion in liquidity, which means that cash that they can actually use to cover those
So if you sell, you're not going to see that money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a problem with them not having the cash to actually pay out your investments if they like go tits up, essentially.
Yeah, so I'm done with Robinhood. But to be fair, well, I guess it's not really fair, but I did a project on the CARES Act in my finance course, and if you look at the federal funds that were dispersed, the government spread money that was meant to be given out to the American people pretty equally. Like, households got the same as corporations and businesses, but the reason why we see so much money go to Wall Street and firms is because within the Federal Reserve and the Central Bank of America, they actually have to keep trading, and they have to buy assets that are becoming worthless to keep the value of the dollar up. So that's why we see these disproportionate, massive amounts of money staying within the finance industry. But to be fair, not all that money is going directly into like corporations' pockets.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's being leveraged out. But at the same time, like, if your company does well, like, you didn't necessarily do much to grow your company, but you're still going to get a multi-million-dollar bonus because the taxpayer bailed you out.
The other thing is like banks, like the big banks that trade with the Federal Reserve tend to take on a lot of liability too.
Yeah, they
because
do.
if you think about it, even though they're getting low interest rates,
They have
a
to
lot
take
of times-
assets they never want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not a terrible relationship, and it's almost necessary the way we set up monetary policy.
Yeah. Our banking system was set up
I did want to start.
support this.
I wanted to start this section like wearing sunglasses and being like, Wall Street's getting fucked by us guys. Hold the line, diamond hands. There's like a bunch of memes that are going on, and I actually support the cause. I think Mark Cuban brought up a great point. This is only the start. This is now a new situation or a new risk that Wall Street's going to have to deal with for a long time. There are going to be retail investors that are just going to try and fuck over hedge funds that short stocks, because what they're trying. This is why I actually don't like hedge funds, because they do minimize risk by playing both sides of the equation, but also they're betting against American companies. So they actually want certain companies in the American economy to fail. Like they do better if industry gets worse in a lot of cases. And I actually think that's one of the common criticisms is like short sellers are actually kind of scumbags.
Well, the short selling is actually before 2008. Short selling wasn't that common, and then they saw like a group of like 4 or 5 individuals. Like, some of them were hedge fund managers, some of them were just independent, and they saw like, holy shit, this crash came and these people made bank. Like, they banked out because they knew how to read how leverage assets work.
Yeah.
Like, they knew there was going to be a hole in mortgage lending.
Yeah.
Big Short, horrible movie mentioned there.
Yeah, well,
you guys don't
Too Big to Fail.
No.
The book Too Big to Fail explains it a lot better. But yeah, that movie.
Yeah.
That movie is a great. If you don't have the time to read a book, that movie does a pretty good job of showing it.
You guys have any thoughts?
I mean, it's like anything else in this fucking country, man. You know, it's always set up against the little man. Like, you know, I think that to a degree, you know, I don't know all the ins and the outs of everything. And obviously, I'm a film major, but you know, B was telling me like last week about how like some of what they did could be like illegal technically, like what the guys on Reddit did, and.
Well, traditionally it is illegal. Like, traditionally when people have grown in popularity and they call a stock and people listen and those stock prices go up.
It's like insider trading, right?
Yeah, like if you grow to a big enough level, like the government comes after you, like they fine you and take your shit.
The thing that someone who's pro the Reddit users could say though is how is that any different from someone going on CNBC, which is like business channel,
it's not
saying, oh, I feel a certain way about this industry, and then buying up stock or shorting it to like.
The thing is, not many people listen to those guys.
I think my big.
So no one.
But they should call them out. But the only reason they don't get called out on it is because they are the insiders of Wall Street.
And I was gonna say that's my big comment. Is just that I think of this whole fucking thing. It's like, of course they're gonna lose money. They're gonna cry and like bitch about it, and shut down Robinhood and everything. Fucking else.
It's actually bullshit that they're trying to go after credit unions for this, because long term this is actually gonna be a movement. I think is you're gonna see retail investors actually grouping together a lot more often to try and like pump and dump.
What I think is crazy also about the whole thing is how Reddit's become like a huge media platform now.
Yeah.
Like, that's to the point where it can influence what goes on Wall Street. Which I think is
Reddit's hands down the best out of the social medias in my.
I gotta spend more time on
I love Reddit. Reddit's the best.
There's
real people on Reddit. You don't see like real people on Instagram or Twitter. Twitter's filled with
Twitter's
such a cesspool of Twitter's a cesspool of activists, racists, xenophobes, all those people. You get them in a room, and incels. Like that's what I associate Twitter with. Like if you read half the comments on someone's like, someone could be like having a great day with my husband, and there'll be like an ISIS comment. It's like, how did Twitter get to this point?
Yeah. Facebook is just a bunch of like Gen Xers and Boomers arguing.
Yeah. So Facebook's not actually as bad. The only thing that's bad with Facebook
Marketplace is sick.
I'd argue Facebook's one of the worst.
Are fun too.
Facebook's one of the worst for like fake news.
Facebook is crazy.
Facebook and Twitter.
That's the thing that sucks about Twitter. Is I don't really like Twitter, but like every journalist has to pretty much have Twitter these days.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's a news
outlet.
Twitter the most. But there's so much fake news saying.
I don't like Twitter.
I think Instagram's.
No. I think Reddit's the best. Hands down, LinkedIn, and then
Instagram's not bad.
Instagram just has a lot of
Instagram serves a purpose.
It has a lot of like clickbait on it.
So I'm actually taking a media course, or a couple media courses right now. We actually were just today engaging with like a reading, and it was, I never thought of it before until I read this and we kind of discussed it, but there's theories out there about media that basically the overproduction of media that we have now with social media, with the 24-hour news, with everything else we have set up media-wise, it's like, because of the overproduction of media, it almost just it almost takes away from it being real media, like real news, like, because what you're getting is eventually like someone, Fox has to fill that slot. They got to come up with something to talk about, or CNN.
You get people like Hannity,
and then all you get are opinions.
Yeah,
those opinions,
the same thing.
and those opinions become the news, and it's like that's not real.
Yeah,
no, it's true.
And the thing is, like back in like the 60s too, investigative journalism was like mainstream. It was considered like what should be the norm. Like you had practices and standards. Now I honestly would argue that most journalists have sacrificed that,
or the companies they work for.
Have sacrificed it for juicy headlines and clickbait a lot of the
time. But then that's not entirely true, because you have people.
The perfect example though is like the New York Times. To me, has actually lowered its quality compared to what it used.
It's gotten a little bit more to like commentary, but the investigative, I still say, is not entirely true, because you still have every now and then these people who come out and expose people for corruption scandals, like fraud.
Well, there's still places like the Guardian.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm saying, it was two New York Times reporters who exposed the Harvey Weinstein country recently, and their book went viral, and it like partly started the Me Too movement, and that was like all on the internet from like investigative old school journalism. So I just think it's like you kind of like, it's just like more important than ever for journalists to focus on like real news and not bullshit.
Is like the thing I actually miss about like old news, almost like, not, I wouldn't call it old news, I guess, but like what used to be considered normal was that it didn't have a partisan tone in its nature, no matter what side it was from. It almost was like trying to present you with facts that you could then internalize and try and analyze. It wasn't like they were giving an opinion to try and skew you and make you feel a certain way. It was like almost like they just try and present facts on a case to try and like just let you internalize it.
Well, the main way you really get around this is just by like reading like like getting websites you like and just reading their actual articles.
Well, yeah.
If you go to CNN or Fox's websites, like their actual written articles aren't that radical.
Yeah.
They're really not
You
that
gotta
radical.
follow the source rabbit holes.
Yeah.
That's so
But
important.
the thing is, I don't use either.
I think
It's
you know,
just
like Axios, Vice, like Popular Front, stuff like that is the best, like real raw grassroots.
Well, we were talking about Vice recently, and like I also agree with you guys. Like I like Vice a lot. I think that they do some really interesting stuff. You know, they do some documentary type like investigative work that really gets you right there in the middle of what's going on, and you see people's lives that you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah.
But I even think, you know, there's departments of Vice that are, you know, we talked about this, like still, you know, in the middle and neutral. Like I would say Vice on HBO is good with that, but there's other parts of Vice that are like so skewed to the left.
Also,
Yeah, I think
sometimes they
as
just
it's
report on
grown,
bullshit.
it's split off into like different, like just like completely different segments of the same
Yeah.
company.
They're like lifestyle news. It's just sometimes completely.
Lifestyle news is the
It's just
dumbest
freaks,
shit.
bro. It's like that dude, like that guy.
That's to me like what's
I
happening.
know what
now.
guy it is.
That's like BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed is lifestyle news.
Yeah.
It's such a travesty though because it happens on both sides where I don't really feel like there's that many news sources. Like I know we like The Economist and Wall Street Journal and
Bloomberg's great.
stuff like that.
British Broadcasting Channel.
Yeah,
Amazing.
the British Broadcasting Channel. But like at the end of the day, there's really not that many sources left, and people don't even seek them out. Like the average American will just throw on CNN and just like listen to whatever their Fox.
You have to develop
And, like,
a
there's-
news diet.
The other thing is people don't. I've noticed this. Like I, you know, something we always learned growing up. I always try to do. I see other people. You know, even my parents. I'll watch them watch the news. It's always the same station.
Yeah.
It's like you have to. Like I follow. You know, I'm very in the middle. I lean a little bit on the left, but like I follow Fox News and like you know CNN.
Yeah.
Like you gotta balance. If
And-
you don't, then you're just.
You
can't watch
any
any
of
of
it.
that. Not only
No, you
that,
really
but
can't.
when you watch these guys, like they report the same thing and then they talk about that one thing for hours. It's like news doesn't have to be like news is like you get what's going on for the day and then that's it. You're done for the day.
Yeah.
Now wait till the next day. Now see what's going on the
Yeah,
next
well,
day.
I would say unless it's
That's
like
all
a
it is.
developing story, like a deeper story.
Yeah, unless it's like breaking news,
following
like
it.
a huge deal.
Like
Yeah.
a develop. But I think,
But with our phones, we all get those alerts right away.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, still, someone's got to report on that. I think though what he said is right. Like, I think like CNN, NBC, Fox, CBS, and ABC are a little better. I think they're a little better. They're a little
Yeah.
more like for like yeah.
Honestly, I don't
But
think CNN is that hard.
The thing is though, it's
It's
not.
not, but it's still, you can tell they're like more,
They are
more
skewed,
talk
like,
show.
yeah.
It's more, the thing is not for me being skewed.
Madhouse.
It's more talk show opinions that
Right.
bother me.
Yeah.
It's not presenting you facts and like trying to like investigate and try and get to the bottom. It's literally trying to say the most like spontaneous and like sensationalist like things that you can mention to like try and get higher ratings.
Well, it's
Yeah,
also
the
because
problem.
the media is getting less independent. Unfortunately, there's like
Yeah.
5 major companies that own like all the media.
Bro, it was like 6 when we were like in high school.
Yeah,
Like,
Well,
Well,
we're
one
all.
out
You could also
recently.
say that we're all now part of the media. Like everyone who has a Twitter, everyone who
Yeah,
has
we are
an
part of it.
Instagram,
Yeah.
everyone, who
Yeah.
everyone who can put something out and influence someone else's opinion on anything
that's-
now, like you know.
Even though there's a lot of
Libertarian,
fake news,
yeah.
yeah,
Libertarians.
that's what I'm saying.
There needs to be more of us guys. How do you guys not exist out there?
Yeah. They exist. We're just a quiet group.
They're all they just like
Also, I'm guaranteeing you some libertarians would vehemently disagree with some of our views.
yeah. The thing
Yeah.
with libertarians is that also it's like a spectrum. Like not all of them are like.
Well,
It's
what
like
we-
we're on the bottom plane.
Yeah, they're on the bottom line of the axis.
What we believe in at the most is everyone's free to make their choices.
Yeah.
That's the
That's
core.
basic.
And we're all anti-authoritarian, anti like big government.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's just like not like, and the funny thing is that's probably the view of almost, I would say the majority of Americans, but a lot of Americans. It's just like not what catches like the mainstream media because they like that our country's divided. That's what the government and the mainstream media wants.
Because it distracts the people from what's really
The
going
actual
on.
problems which are fucking over everybody. That's the thing. Libertarians and moderates, I guarantee, make up the most of the populace.
Yeah.
Actually, the one issue I don't get, like, why libertarians are split on is the abortion issue. Because, like, if you think about it, why would you want to give government the control of it?
No, that's ridiculous.
It's really pathetic.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get that one.
That or same-sex.
I don't understand how any libertarian can disagree on that. It's pro-choice.
It's also
that
curbing
person.
to reduce crime. Like,
If we're pro-choice,
Well, yeah.
if we're pro-choice on drugs, how can we not be pro-choice?
Yeah, when it's literally someone's life is getting threatened, and they're like, no, government laws say you can't do that. Like, what the fuck?
I'll never get, like, someone who's pro.
Yeah, no, same thing with the ones who are anti-LGBT. I'm like, this is like laws.
Well, that's not.
There's some libertarians like that. It's like really religious ones, but like separation of church and state. Like, come on. But no, like, yeah, this thing with the media real quick is the one good thing about social media is there's a lot of, the bad thing is there's a lot of fake news and bullshit, but it also allows for more independent voices to be heard. And that's why I said I like how there's all these new, like, grassroots journalists popping up primarily on social media, like Popular Front, OIF Nation, like all these kind of.
I love
That's like for conflict journalism and like political and foreign foreign news. Those are great. But speaking of the social media again, so are we gonna do some Reddit questions?
Yeah, we're going on
commercial
this.
break is coming.
Commercial break's over. All right, so as we mentioned, we do this Reddit advice like segment on the show, and this first one on r/advice, if anyone wants to go to the page and look at some of the posts, is do I confront my roommate? I 24 female.
Confront? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like do I confront?
That's a
That's
question.
the question that they're
Does
asking.
it need advice for?
I 24 female, live with my roommate, 21 female. We got this place together after meeting through work and realized we could both afford it and wouldn't have an hour commute anymore. After 4 months, she became a different person. She complains constantly about everything. I even find her complaining to our clients about her life at work. I keep to myself and don't get involved. She went as far to say that she wants to have an intervention with one of her friends, another coworker, because they're hanging out with someone else more than her. My roommate also is an alcoholic, yet complains about drinking too much as well. Hopefully not at work. Recently, my boyfriend was at the apartment. I went to work for a few hours, and it just so happened she was there. I'm usually there if he is. There was a snowstorm, and he didn't want to drive the hour commute early in the AM on icy roads. She was in her room, and he was in our room, and only came out one time to use the restroom and went back into the bedroom. I then got a text later on saying, not to be a dick, but I don't feel comfortable when he's here with me. I said I understand, and she liked the comment and pretended as if nothing were wrong when I saw her that night. My boyfriend feels like she hates him, and he has to walk on eggshells around her now as if he's not welcome. He's never done anything to her. In fact, he's only ever treated her with respect, and when he cooks dinner, he asks her if she wants any to make her not feel left out. Usually she rejects the offer, complains about something, and goes away. That's kind of funny. What do I do? Do I talk to her about this? Do I just say nothing and let my boyfriend continue to feel the way he does? I don't know what's the right move. My boyfriend said I should stop paying any attention to her because she's a narcissist that wants to play victim, looking for sympathy, and call her out on the bull since there's never been any issues. I like her boyfriend.
I think we should have our guests take this one first.
What do you think of me, sir?
Yeah.
Well, I live with, like, this is our place, so I live with Alex and a B, and I, confront the I think with, like, roommates, the thing is this, like, any roommate you live with, you're gonna have problems. Even when, we grew up, we lived with our parents, like, they were our roommates in a way.
Yeah.
Like, we had problems, we had problems with them. Like, the thing with living with people is that you should always, I think, feel comfortable in your own space and be able to talk about things. But there does get to be a point where it's like, do you confront or do you, just kind of like swallow it for the sake of like keeping the environment good? But this sounds like just a horrible environment. So I would say confront and have some serious conversations, but do them in a way that makes the continued living in that space, like, not toxic as fuck. So
I agree with confront. Confront definitely, because if you don't, what will happen is the problems will continue, and it'll get worse and worse until someone snaps. And it's better to confront them in a civil way than to kind of get into a whole fight and argument about it.
Your roommate is a silly bitch. Okay? She needs someone to sit her down and have an intervention with her. I think it's like imperative that, like, if you still consider her a close friend, that you do this for her. I know you said that she complains constantly, so just sit her down and be like, why are you truly this unhappy? Maybe you need to change a few things in your life. Also, you should probably or move out. And you should probably be like, I don't understand why you feel uncomfortable when my boyfriend's here. When, like, he always offers to, like, treat you fairly and asks if you want food or anything. He just tries to, like, lend a helping hand. I think, like, if she brings up these points, her roommate has no option but to either apologize or move forward with the knowledge that she has to be nicer to them. And in addition, if she doesn't do that, then I think that the person who asks the questions knows that this is probably a relationship that's not going to work out long term, and she needs to cut her off.
I say, figure out how long you have left on your lease. If there's a while, you want to confront it, because there will be another night where it gets worse. But if it's a short time, just wait it out. Just wait it out. Don't even bother. Just get out when you can.
That's fair.
Alright, here. We're gonna do one more. Alright, ready? Alright, so this one's a bit just funnier. At least the subject line is. So this familiar let 5035 asks, or he says, coworkers are disrespectful to patients when they are under anesthesia. Am I overreacting?
Oh my god.
I recently got a job as a surgical technologist in heart surgery. The job is hard and I have a lot of training to do, but I enjoy it nonetheless. I'm working through school until I hopefully go to medical school in 3 years. I've noticed that my coworkers, mostly nurses and other techs, say really awful things about the patients who say they're under anesthesia. Whether the patient can hear it or not, I feel awful for the patient. They're likely terrified. Their family is probably praying and crying in the waiting room while my coworkers are insulting the patient's appearance, anatomy, etc. I know that technically, if the patient is unaware, there's nothing harmful, or that nothing harmful is really being done. But the overall dehumanization of someone in such a vulnerable position who is trusting us to care for them without passing judgment really bothers me. Other healthcare workers, what have you done, and have you overcome this?
Well, I think I might actually take this one, because I've actually been under anesthesia twice. So in high school, I had 2 knee surgeries, one on each knee because of football. And both times I was anesthetized, and it's like the second year under. So like the first time, they like roll me into the room, and the anesthesiologist and the surgeon, they like introduce themselves, and then the anesthesiologist was like, "Hey, you will pass her?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then he was like, "Okay, well, name like your top 5 players." While I had the mask on, I maybe got through like 1.5, and I was out. The second time they just asked me to count to 10, I was probably up at like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So after that, all you remember is waking up. Then once it's over,
Yeah.
like that's it. It's immediate. It's like that.
It's great.
So the fact that this haunts me. This is traumatizing reading this, because it's like, what could they have said about it? They seem so nice.
No, I think
they
they
seem
seem
so
less of
caring.
fuck with some random ass dog.
Yeah, I mean,
to say about
like at the end
as
of
long
the
as they do
day,
their job, they can fuck off.
yeah, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. But like reading this post is like, goddamn, man, like these are some ruthless motherfuckers.
The thing is, like, it is a vulnerable state because I've been put under twice too. Both times were for one was for an endoscopy and one was for a colonoscopy because I had acid reflux.
Yeah.
And they were like trying to diagnose and see how bad the damage was on the inside. So like thinking about it, when you're being put under, you're so vulnerable. You're taking away from your parents. Like imagine if they're doing this to kids. And, like this kid's funny looking. Like I can't even imagine like the doctors like look at this loser. Like, you know what I mean?
Like,
it's
this
just
kid's a
so
brat.
No popsicle after the surgery.
What I'll say, because I've also been under it twice. Once for like a surgery here when I was like got an accident with snowboarding, and then once also for wisdom teeth. And I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't care less what they say. See, it took actually for some reason it took a while. It didn't take like 4. Like I counted to 10 and I still wasn't out.
Oh, I was out
like. So I don't know if it was weak or something. She was like, "Damn, like I didn't expect it to be this strong." I was like, "What are you trying to say?" Like,
when you guys were kids, you ever get like the scented stuff, like where they give you like root beer or cotton candy scented one?
Nah, I haven't done it that young.
No, I never.
I
I
I like the root beer one. That thing was sick, dude. That was so quick.
Yeah, it took me a while. She's like, "I'll have to crank it up." She's like, "Let's do a lot of drugs or something."
I smoked some weed.
And then when I woke up, I didn't like the feeling. That was like that time was like for my wisdom teeth, so you're just gonna wake up feeling like shit. I mean, like I said, I get it if they complain about like how you cooperate and stuff, but I think as a doctor, you kind of are obligated to act professional.
You're under oath.
Like if I was that
You're under
person,
oath.
if I was that person at Red, I'd be like, "Hey, shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
To those guys.
The thing is,
I would say if the person who posted that, speak up if you think something is said that's so like disrespectful, but otherwise, I mean, say something if you're uncomfortable, but like they're not gonna know. So like if it's just a little thing, like who cares?
Yeah.
Grow a thicker skin.
I'd say my advice to the actual question, because I didn't answer it, is
be careful. You don't want to lose your job.
If it's your coworkers and it's nothing that like you morally like, if you morally can like. Are like, alright, it's not terrible. Just stay quiet. Just don't take part in it yourself. I mean, that's really.
I would say, obviously, if you hear someone make a racial or like a sexual comment or something that's inappropriate, like that would warrant maybe saying something. But I feel like if someone just said like, "Oh, this one's got like big ears" or something, I'd just be like,
it's like, oh,
yeah, those antennas.
Yeah, why are you picking up Sirius XM?
Yeah.
You got a satellite back in your
Alright, so we're doing one last thing before we wrap up this episode. It's a special one, of course. The Super Bowl is this coming weekend, and that's going to be definitely a topic for the next episode, like what happened during the game and everything. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of get our predictions for like the score and kind of outcome of the game. So if you want to start with what do you think the score is and how, what's your prediction?
So I'm going to go on what I'm hoping happens. I think it'll be the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers will win 31-20.
That's fair. I chatted way too much shit about Tom Brady early on. If you go back to like one of the early episodes, I think we talked about Cam Newton.
Yeah.
People disagree with me. Tom Brady was a dumpster fire last year. He was an absolute dumpster fire of a quarterback.
Yeah, I disagree.
Cam Newton might be in the title. But I talked a lot of smack about Tom Brady, and I regret it. However, I'm in deep at this point.
Ben Roethlisberger.
I did call
He
Ben.
said Brady was a dumpster fire.
Well,
Honestly,
that's-
you guys can target.
Yeah, we will target you on
But anyway, I am going to stick with my gut. And as much as I want Brady to win, and I actually do want Brady to win, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I'll go 27-21. And the reason for that is I think unless the Bucs defense forces numerous turnovers, I think it's very difficult to stop the Chiefs offense. I think it's Pat Mahomes is something that's almost unstoppable right now in the NFL as a quarterback. He's definitely the best in the league, and I don't really want to take anyone on an individual matchup against him, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that team is fucking wild.
Yeah.
What I'm going to have to go with is, so I also, obviously being a Pats fan, lifelong, want Brady to win. I want him to get his, this is going to be his 10th Super Bowl appearance, and if he were to win, it'd be his 7th ring, so I really want that to happen, just breaking even more records as a quarterback. But I honestly think that the Chiefs as a team, because obviously Brady's better than Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes is great, but Brady's better. But I think defensively and just overall, like their coach like Andy Reid, I just think has the upper hand as a coach. I think overall as a team, and he has the experience. He has more experience, and he has the experience of like being in the Super Bowl last year, so he kind of knows how to do things. So I think it's going to be 31-27 to the Chiefs. Is what I'm thinking. But I hope it's a Bucs.
I hope it's the Bucs too.
So I'm not much of like an NFL fan. I don't have a team. I used to always rag on Brady because I always just thought he was
Doesn't have a
the
team.
poster boy. I know.
Doesn't have a team. He's gonna
I
shit
know.
on it.
Well, no. So what I'm gonna say honestly, and I'm gonna say it's based on past Super Bowls and me sitting there watching them and being humbled by watching Tom Brady play. I'm gonna agree with Bert. I'm gonna say 31-28 to the Bucs. I think that I think the Chiefs definitely have the coaching staff, and I think that Pat Mahomes might show out, but I think that Brady is just good under pressure, and I just think he's gonna do it. The only thing I will say though, watching AFC, right? They're in the AFC.
And the Chiefs are.
Okay, NFC. Exactly. There you go. My knowledge of NFL, but in the NFC championship, the only thing I would say, Brady did have a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, he actually threw 3 picks in that.
That's why I actually took the Chiefs. Is the only way for the Bucs to realistically find a
Bucs need a near perfect game.
Not only a near perfect game, but they're gonna have to force turnovers and limit turnovers on the offensive side.
The thing is, if any defense could do it, I think it's the Bucs defense. They have a powerful defense.
Yeah.
They shut the Saints down. That is no easy task.
Well,
Both teams are good.
I'd honestly argue that taking the ball away from Patrick Mahomes is one of the toughest challenges for any defense.
Also, you have people like Tyreek Hill too as their.
I mean, the Chiefs are just insane. They're just like, I just really want them to lose.
Same. I want them
win
to
another year. Don't win against Tom Brady.
The other thing is like if Tom Brady wins this game, I don't even think anyone will pass him for generations.
Max Kellerman.
If he wins this game.
You think Max Kellerman will finally just be like, all right, Brady's great.
But the thing that's so interesting about this is quarterbacks have left their franchises that they were with their whole career and gone on to make playoff runs. But Tom Brady, I think Brett Favre's the only one to take a team to the Super Bowl in his 40s after he changed. Like he left the Packers, went with the Vikings. But if Tom Brady wins this game, he'll be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl over 40, and the first year with a new team.
First
And
year.
also, it's the first time that the first time the home team's playing in their own.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And there's going to be in-person fans. I believe 2,200.
Oh wow, 2,200.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it might be a home field advantage from that.
You think Brady will get into like an argument with a Karen like LeBron did?
No, I don't think he'll stoop to that level.
No, Brady's too broad.
I do think, I think it all comes down, honestly, if the Bucs defense can stop Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, then I think that.
If they can force the ball to go to their other receivers, who are also very good and fast as well. But if they can shut out Kelsey and Tyreek, they probably won't shut out Tyreek. But if they can stop them for a good chunk of the game, they have a chance.
And if Brady, he can't throw any picks. That's like.
I'll put it this way: if the Bucs get 2 turnovers, the Bucs defense gets 2 turnovers. They have
Brady capitalizes on.
Yeah, because Brady has to limit turnovers too. That's been a big struggle.
But actually, it hasn't been a big struggle through playoffs in the season. It wasn't in the beginning of the season.
Yeah,
But towards the end of the season, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Even most of the playoffs, it wasn't that big of a deal until the last game against.
Although the one thing I will say is Brady should only have 2 picks because the third pick was like one where it was tipped from. I always hate those. Those honestly shouldn't be so.
They should be counted as interceptions.
They should be interceptions, but they should have a different column for them.
Yeah.
Like when it's a tipped interception from a
Like
receiver,
tip out, like a contact interception.
yeah, I hate those so much because they honestly kind of skew the stat sheets.
Yeah, they ruin a quarterback's stats, but the quarterback didn't mess up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That concludes our episode.
Yeah.
Which number is this right now?
21.
21, yeah. So thank you guys for keeping up the support. Please tune in next week. We're going to have another episode right after the Super Bowl. So Thanks for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, Straight No Chaser ENT.
We're back.
More content's coming out soon, so stay tuned.
Back on schedule.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.